Very good. Welcome everyone to today's Zube lecture. I'm very excited to introduce my colleague, Frank Sleegers. But before I do that, I wanted to give a quick heads up for next week's lecture, which is on the screen right now with Angela Loader, the Vice President of Research from the International Wells Building Institute. I don't know her, but it looks interesting and I hope you can join us for that. So maybe you can take that one down, Nathan, and put me up there. Thank you. Okay. Well, it's my pleasure to introduce Frank Sleegers. I've known Frank in a lot of capacities in over some decades, which is the way I like to count time these days. I first met Frank when he came to our department as an exchange student from the University of Hanover in Germany. And Frank came with, I believe, with 3 other Germans that year. And one of them is on the call today, Rainer Schaes, also from Germany. So Frank and Rainer stayed here for a year and they went back to Hanover and finished their degree there. And then Frank said, I think I'll come back to UMass and finish my degree there as well. So he came back to UMass and earned his second master's degree with us. And then he went back to Germany and was working for some time. And then he had an opportunity to join our faculty on a temporary position, adjunct or interim or something like that. And Frank did that for a couple of years. And then fortunately for us, he secured a tenure track position and became an assistant professor. And now he has earned tenure and he's a full-blooded associate professor in our department. Frank has been very active in our department in promoting urban design in general, but urban design in particular. And he has developed a really model relationship with the city of Springfield, where he has done dozens of projects with undergraduate and graduate students, and always involving the community and always working with the city officials in Springfield. I know they appreciate his work. The work has been submitted to competitions and has won competitions. Frank is a very enthusiastic teacher, and he often voluntarily teaches extra studios to give students an opportunity to participate in competitions. And as I just mentioned, he has had some important national success with those competitions. Today, Frank is going to speak about Gustav Lange. One more little story first. Another way that I know Frank, Julius Febos, who's also on the call today, a retired professor, and I we went to Hanover, Germany to teach a course one spring break, I think it was. And while we were in Hanover, Frank and Rainer invited us for dinner. And we had a beautiful German dinner, I think with Wurst, of course with Wurst, right? What else would we have? So we had Wurst and it was a lot of fun. Okay, so back to Frank.
Here too.
And here too, right? And and we did that in Northampton, yeah. So we have lots
beer.
of
We had beer too.
Beer.
Beer.
Not too much though, just the right amount.
Right, exactly.
Responsible drinking.
Yes.
Okay, so Frank today is going to talk about Gustav Lange and his work at the Mauerpark in Berlin. As you heard, Frank is German. Frank has an interest in German landscape architecture. Gustav Lange is a relatively lesser known big figure in German landscape architecture. And Frank has been researching, individual independent research with one-on-one research with Gustav Lange to tell his story about the development of the Mauerpark, which opened in 1994, just 5 years after the Berlin Wall came down. Mauer means wall in German. Mauerpark is a park that was built on the previous site of the Berlin Wall, which is a site that is really, really loaded with meaning and symbolism and emotion, and just a really important terrain in the city. And when the wall came down, it created all kinds of opportunities for new uses of the land. And the Mauerpark is, I believe, the most prominent redevelopment of that land that was formerly the Berlin Wall. So Frank's going to tell us that story, and I'm interested to hear that. And I'd just like to close by kind of reciting a few of the adjectives that that come to my mind when I think of Frank. Passionate, enthusiastic, a little eccentric, athletic, more than a little athletic, but most of all, he's a great colleague and friend. So please join me to give a big Zoom welcome to Frank Sleegers.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you, Zach, for this enthusiastic and very kind introduction. Also before I start, I want to thank Nathan Stacy in the background, who have made the Zube lecture a success this semester. And I thank also the whole department for letting me pursue my passion and interest in landscape architecture, sometimes going diverse and sometimes unbeaten pathways. I definitely thank Gustav Lange and his wife, Claudia Fiedler, for the possibility to design in collaboration and learn a lot from him. And the hospitality, the food, the many espressos, and also thank all the individuals I encountered in the last years to share my passion about the Mauerpark. They share the same passion, especially Bernd Krüger, who was from the Friends of the Mauerpark. And I also like my family supporting me, exploring and working there, going to Berlin during my off time. And I like Tia Novak for advising and rehearsal this presentation. Oh yeah, I should probably share the screen too, right? So I think I'm not used to this because normally I'm on the other end here. Here we go. So thank you. Today what I'm going to talk about is first introduce a little bit to the area of Mauerpark, atmospheres, the death strip, Gustav Lange, the concept, the clearing in the city, and then I go deeper into the analysis, which I've been working on the last year, and then conclude with atmospheres and conclusion. So this is the Mauerpark in the fall of 2020. And since 2016, I've collaborated with Gustav Lange. And what you see on the right side, the first phase is in '94. And the latest construction phase was completed in the fall of 2020. So very, very recently. So we look at over 30 years evolving a park from concept to realization. The park is about 800 meters long, 120 to 200 meters wide. I cannot translate it now, and maybe somebody in the chat can translate it to feet. Has a size of 37 acres. And you see the delineation here in the middle. That's a place where the wall stood until 1989. And today it's just a 1 foot wide mark on the ground. And this is a plan that would explain that. Again, the phase 1 on top, and then phase 2 actually started 2010 with a community participation workshop and Gustav Lange. You also see it's a little more intricate and more diverse. So yeah, Mauerpark. Mauerpark always has been my favorite park. And to be there on nice and warm day in Berlin evening, bring a bottle of wine or beer, listen to the guitar playing or the drummer. Take a swing on the swings and with your beloved one and look into the beautiful sky of Berlin. And Jack, you've been to the park, right? Sorry, you missed out the good weather on that day. But yeah, and I look back, I even connect even more from like the park here. And as a grading student, I remember in Hanover 1995, I think I had two posters in my room. One was picturing an orange-colored KTM dirt bike, and the other one was the concept of Mauerpark. So back then I didn't know what that means, and maybe I still don't know what it means. I take you on a little tour here, and so yeah, that's some atmospheres about the park. I think that the images speak for themselves. The vibrant park, karaoke on Sundays, very lively. The hinterland Mauer, always very active and up to date, as you can see. And the swings, and that's the most beautiful thing, you know, you swing there and it's such a great place to be. A flea market on Sundays. I read about 40,000 people go there. So probably not now, but until recently. And some newer parts of the addition. So you've seen first of the old part. This is more the new part. And you see all kinds of people, all kinds of ages, kids, people hanging out. So let me tell you a bit of the history here. It began, Mauerpark began actually, was a territory of a rail yard. And in the east, there was an Exerzierplatz, which means like parade and exercise grounds. It was also the birthplace of one of the more famous Berlin soccer clubs. So had been a rail yard until the 1930s. But you see the lively photos, but the face in between was quite shocking. So 140 people died at the Berlin Wall. And you see in the picture that there was a so-called death strip. And you see the Berlin Wall is actually not one wall, it's two walls. And the space in between is the death strip. The graphic displays a typical cross-section of these fortifications. 1980, it looks like that. You see a hinterland Mauer, an inner wall, and that's even there today for some pieces, became a graffiti wall. And that's the only physical remnant. So when Lange began this project, all fortifications, with the exception of that hinterland Mauer, the inner wall, were cleared. Gustav Lange, experienced designer, like farmer, horticulture, nurseryman, worked with stone, traveled a lot, reads a lot. So, and here you see a presentation where he presented in 2012 a concept for the Mauerpark, the western part, which was then implemented a year ago. And I actually worked for Gustav Lange in the late 90s, collaborated as a young designer in his office on many projects, mostly in Berlin, some in Munich, some in Hanover. One of like my favorite one is also Narva, Frieshain, with he replaced monolithic tufa stone cubes in 4 courtyards of a former light bulb factory. So you could say stone, water, and plants. This is the media Gustav Lange is using. This is a design concept competition. Mauerpark was a competition in 1992, and then Lange understood the Mauerpark as a clearing in a city, a space for freedom and randomness between two political systems. This is the final concept plan that was going to be implemented, but unfortunately for the first 25 years, only the eastern part was implemented. So let me show a little bit about the concept of Mauerpark here. And Gustav Lange talks himself about the space.
Es war ein leeres Feld. Ein leeres Feld. Leer geschossen.
Früher ging man dort weg. Man wollte noch nicht mal die Mauer sehen, selbst wenn man im Westen rangehen konnte, aber es war so ein ganz schwieriger Niemandslandsbereich, unwirklich. Man wollte nicht hin. Und jetzt gehen die Leute extra deshalb hin, weil es so ein Ort geworden ist, der kommunikativ sein soll. Das ist wunderbar.
Es ist ein Multikulti-Raum. Da trifft sich ja alles und jeder.
Hier auf der Grafik sehen ist die damalige Gestaltungsvorlage vor 15 Jahren, wie sich Professor Gustav Lange das vorgestellt hat. Nicht alles, was wir hier als Park sehen, wurde tatsächlich realisiert. Also der Mauerpark, wie wir ihn kennen, ist momentan nur ungefähr halb so groß. Dieser ganze untere Teil hier unten ist momentan inexistent.
Wir sind ganz sicher eben nicht der Potsdamer Platz. Wir sind nicht so schick und wir wollen nicht so schick werden. Wir wollen nicht so glatt werden. Wir wollen nicht so gebügelt sein, wie es an all diesen Stellen passiert ist.
Man müsste es nur bald mal pflanzen, sonst müssen ja auch wachsen. Die brauchen Zeit. Die hätten ja 20 Jahre schon stehen können. Das wären ja schon große Bäume. Was soll dieses ganze Hin- und Hergeschiebe? Das ist doch Zeitverschwendung. Im Grunde gehören die Bäume morgen gepflanzt.
So yes, so you've seen some original voices here. So finally, there was a workshop that began in 2010 and a community workshop about phase 2 of Mauerpark. And what was also part of this was elements were included that haven't been included in the first phase. And you see the lower part is more intricate, is more diverse. It has a flea market space. It has a community center. It has playground. It included the restaurants that have been created there because of the attractivity of Mauerpark, and also the Mauer gardeners. There were community gardeners that took over the space. So things have been actively in collaboration with Gustav Lange developed here. So I will go over now and go a little bit deeper in the detail here and doing a design analysis. And this coming from like a time when I wrote a paper with Elizabeth Braybeck, and thank you, Elizabeth, for doing this or for getting me into this. And we got very deep into classical design theory. Well, unity is the most important principle, and followed with complexity. Ideally well balanced and in harmony. Too much unity, boring. Too much complexity, chaos. Unity creates coherence, similarity, and repetition. Express similarity and repetition. Complexity creates variety, so variation and diversity. Then related legibility. How readable is the design? How much focus is there? Is there continuity? Spaciousness, even more important, should be even to the left, not to the right. Is there depth? Is there enclosure? So I went on and did a classical mass and void analysis and a simplified evaluation of the tree coverage of the park to qualify the degree of openness. Because keeping the former death strip open was one of Lange's key ideas. So we see quite diverse tree coverage here. We see the open meadow, we see tree clumps, and then we see tree grids with different degrees of openness, and also bosks that are enclosed to the sky. So I walk you a little bit through this here. So that's the main space, the wide open field, which has the openness, maximum openness. We see spaces like that in the summer, a little more attractive than when I was last time in January. The copse of ash trees, medium openness, or much more enclosed, the grove of birches. Places like the pagoda tree grove. So we see kind of contrasting degrees of openness. There's still that big, vast openness, but there are also more intricate spaces where you can, pause and find yourself. So there's this distinct juxtaposition between openness and enclosure. And within the more enclosed tree-covered spaces, the enclosure to the sky is experienced at different gradients and levels. The spacing of trees varies. There are places with informal spacing of trees versus ordered spacing and grids. I did a second part analysis, and this included the Lange's graphic composition, because he always pointed out when we talk, he values form and legibility. And in the design of Mauerpark and other projects, he considers form as a framework to house flexible and diverse function and to be open for process-oriented change also. So my first formal subject for the investigation is lines and axes. Begins with the hinterland Mauer, and Lange integrated the wall as a graffiti art wall. And also the swings are lined. Another important element is the Schwetter Straße. And this was the location of the wall until 1988. And Lange uncovered this historic street in his design in phase 1. And major places are lined along these axes. Another axis is the line of uneven things. And this contains the marking of the Berlin Wall from 1989 on the ground, and also connects various places in the park. And this includes a series of platforms or stages. Concluding, major design elements and places are organized in the design of Mauerpark in axes or lines. The elements can be substantially different, vary in expression of form, orientation, or material, or bring repetitions with variations. The next formal subject is the use of grids in Lange's design. And this occurs in some of his tree plantings, but also in things that he organized like small spaces. So the first one is, for example, is the copse of ash trees. It is planted in a small space grid and defines a specific location on Schwetter Straße. They contrast with the openness of the large field. The grid is slightly tilted and creates a tension with the orientation of Schwetter Straße. The grove of aspen trees. was completed in the winter 2020 and creates a permeable entry situation. The grid is aligned with Eberswalder Straße. To the south, Filterstraße to the east, and the line of the Berlin Wall, 1989, to the west. The result is a rhomboid grid. It also resolves into the park because the spacing of the trees from the street into the park is increasing. Squares in the meadow. This is another design element. So the squares in the meadow are of diverse content and definition through designed granite etching, and they are organized in the grid to mark distinct and flexible areas on the ground. Grids are mainly used to order the placement of trees for alleys, bars, copses, and special situations, such as entries. They are also used to organize smaller variable places, such as the meadow squares. The third formal subject on the composition is the role of principal geometric shapes and forms, squares, rectangles, and circles. The amphitheater and a circular platform are oriented into the park and host small and large concerts. The stone circle creates a node between two different neighborhoods to the west and the east and define a place to meet. Three rectilinear platforms along the line of uneven things bridge east and west again, perpendicularly. Wood, gravel, and granite stone are the diverging surface materials. A series of 4 swings line up along the hinterland Mauer. They are executed with different orientations and thus offer diverse prospect views from the hill onto the park. Principal geometric shapes and forms are used to identify distinct smaller places. The last formal subject of the composition are focal points and small objects. Pyramidal poplars on the hill create landmarks for orientation. Boulders in the copse of ashes dissolve the unity of the street grid. Relicts from the former rail yard introduce and educate about an historic layer of the landscape. The platform of the amphitheater overlaps with the axis of Filterstraße and creates possible encounters. Heavy granite slabs and boulders dissolve the circular form of a stone circle. In conclusion, principal geometric forms and shapes are used as legible interventions. In the larger context of Mauerpark, the shapes are objects that interfere, interrupt, intersect, and overlap with the primary organization elements of the composition, lines and grids. The strategy of dissolving primary ordering elements through distinct objects creates diversity. So why the analysis reveals that while there is evidence of formal geometric execution of Lange's design, there are also moments of variations and exceptions within these legible interventions. This phenomenon is increasing gradually from the larger scale to the smaller design scales. Therefore, from a more closer perspective, civilization changes as geometries and lines are broken up and thus creates diversity in the design. Findings from the spatial analysis of Mauerpark reveal that the design of Mauerparks offers a large portion of void and open space that are kept free, while the smaller space creates rooms with a high degree of intricacy. So walking around Mauerpark, it has all of this. It's a space for people. Sometimes they create a little chaos that is necessary for an open park. But there are also moments of wideness, the sky and the horizon. It feels like on the edge of the ocean in the middle of a city. Landscape and poetry. So I think that's an interesting statement, and it kind of also contradicts with doing a straightforward analysis in a way. But I think any strong design has to have a kind of irrationality and no logic and questions to be asked. So Lange was involved over the span of 30 years to create a place of life and freedom. Lange's careful attention to form and his sensitivity to create a void that people can fill in. Mauer Place is a place of unity, spatially, but even more so sociologically and politically. I think it's a wonderful story here. It's a story from death to life. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Where do I find you guys? Okay.
You can stop sharing.
Oh yeah, right. Oh, I did this. Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you, Frank. It's great to to see your continuing work and your research and your long history of involvement with the park. Is the park now completed, and are there other areas or former wall that might still become parks that have not yet become parks?
No, the park is basically completed now with the entry situation. There are elements that still have to be completed, like the community center at the potato hall, Kartoffelhalle, that still has to be implemented. And I think there's another piece of architecture. I mean, the hall is there, but it's not used. And there's some minor architecture. But basically, the park is completed now. And what's also in the process now, because people who visited the park recently say, oh, well, it's pretty, sometimes in not the best shape. So the phase one and the whole area, there is a qualification measures that are in the discussion to kind of restore. Some of the plants have died, some of the apple trees, so they have to replant it. There's some erosion. So a park needs maintenance, and so that's going on now.
Good. And are there other areas in Berlin on former wall locations that are still being converted into parks?
No, I don't think so. I mean, this was a $10 million project, the last one. I think the latest year, the most significant park in Berlin right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you. Do we have some other questions?
Let's see. Normally we don't we ask people to raise their hands or type in a question, but I'm wondering. It seems like it's a nice group of people. So should we just let people unmute themselves? What do you think, Frank and Jack?
Yes, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I'm gonna change the setting so now people should be able to unmute. You can also raise your hands and type in your questions.
I always see like in the chat 1990s pictures. Well, maybe I provide them.
Frank, I have a question. I really enjoyed your presentation and understanding your relationship with the development of the park. And I guess the question I have is, even though the park is essentially complete and maybe there's some renovations going on and so on, do you think the park has the possibility of responding to some of the current political issues around COVID, around anti-immigrant violence, around sort of the political contestation of public space? Do you think there's a context for addressing those within the design of the park? Because you were talking about the park representing unity and being a unifying space, but in the context of a lot of polarization, I wonder if there are other interventions that might be appropriate.
So I think that the park has a spirit of being diverse, but still like a place for everybody. I mean, you find like all kinds of activities there, like the gardeners, and I think even like through the expansion of Mauerpark, this has been even addressed more. So it becomes a place for many groups, and you see like a lot of diversity in the park, and I think that's so it also has always been a place, even the former park, like not the former park when it was smaller, for political demonstrations, and of course you got it yeah, for freedom and political and democracy. So there is a spirit of freedom that is still inherent in the park, and that's great. So, and you've seen the mural on the wall. There was another one with George Floyd that I didn't see. So the art on the hinterland mall is always active. And whoever wants to paint there can paint there. It's even too much, because some people say graffiti is kind of the thing that holds the park together. I mean, you don't see only graffiti on the hinterland wall. You see graffitis on the benches. You see them on furniture. But it's a little bit rough sometimes. But I think it's a park where an urban urban society expresses their needs and it articulates it. Do you think I answered the question? Or?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mark.
Frank, could you talk a little bit about your personal experience working on this project? You talked a lot about the history of the park and Gustav Lange, but I wonder if you could just speak from, like, center your personal experience of working in Germany and Berlin.
I think it was like, I mean, I came on the project in 2016 during my sabbatical, and I was actually said, okay, I want to write a book about Gustav Lange, and then he put me into the project. And yeah, it has been a very rich experience, because like he's always very straightforward. There's no like fooling around. It's like he also has interest that the park is not kind of everything is put in the park. Yeah, I think, I mean, to me, it has been like also, I would say, stressful, the wrong word, but it's challenging to defend the character or the like the spirit of the park, because not everybody understands the park. So when I drove to Berlin, I had to, you know, present some designs, and it's not always easy to do that. But it was good, and I learned a lot, and still learning a lot. And while walking the park, I also learned to kind of yeah, look at the multiple scales there. It's so interesting. When you have this straightforward, you know, these axes, the squares, the circle, you could say, well, that's pretty simple. And of course, it's broken up a little bit here and there. But like, even if you look close, there's a lot of space and gaps where things are happening. And yeah. And I worked with models, like I worked some of them in the background here, worked a lot with design models. That were effectively used at the presentations to spatially express what you want, and I think that's important. Sometimes the drawing is not that effective, and the 3D perspective also not. I mean, the model has been very effective also to like a communication tool between the designer and the public. Yeah, so now the second phase is kind of finished, but you know, the qualification of the first part is still going on, and due to COVID, it has been a little bit more vague. Next week there is a public presentation everybody can attend, but I hope it's going to be still active, and yeah, I mean, some things are very basic about the park, and some people don't understand the park too. They kind of put like, oh yeah, why don't we put more trees in the middle? Because of course everybody likes trees, but I think it would kind of kill the spirit of the openness and multifunctional purpose. And there is a lot of things happening on the edges too, where you have all these kind of things that happening in these bosques, and so I think keeping a space free also from a history, you know, it's still, you could still read, it's like it has been a death strip, and now it's a play of life.
Great. Thanks, Frank.
Thank you, Tia.
Is there any sculpture program, and how do you see art integrated into the park?
I don't think there is a sculpture program. Well, art is definitely integrated with the graffiti walls. And we may see more art when you see the community center. Maybe some I mean, something is also not expected, but there is no specific kind of art that's kind of top down. I think top down is anyway a concept that wouldn't fit the Mauerpark. Yeah, I cannot say I saw any like sculptures that stand out here. No.
Hi, Frank. Something that caught my eye was the large white structure in the background in photos of the park. I was wondering, is that a part of the park, or does it play any significance?
Oh, there was like the tents. It's like tents, looked like tents.
Yeah, maybe a tall white thing in the background.
Yeah, long and white.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is maybe that was a time when there was a market. This was before the opening of the second part, and that has been used for commercial things, but also for the flea market. So in the current version, you don't see that anymore.
To clarify, I can share the screen. I can share the photo of this structure.
Yeah.
Yeah, give me 1 second. Are you talking about this one, Aiden? This white structure?
Yeah, right there. Yeah.
Ah, okay. So this is a light fixture from there's a stadium, Ludwig Jahn Stadium, right right behind it. So maybe people may ask, what does that hill mean? So the hill is like a mountain or hill that was after the Second World War from the rubble, the leftovers piled up there. Originally it was all flat, and the back has always been like parade ground, exercising field, has been one of the first soccer fields in Berlin, and became a stadium. So this is one of the light fixtures. And yeah, then maybe a detail, like it is planned to tear down the stadium, and some people don't agree with that, but tear down and build a new one, because all these lamps are kind of iconic things in the 1950s design from the former German Democratic Republic. And they fit very, these are landmarks too, they fit well with the poplars, you know, this kind of, I mean, that's also when I worked with Gustav Lange, his composition is always kind of easy. It seems like everything has to kind of flow easy. It's not like, it's pretty, yeah, it feels always to me pretty relaxed. Should feel relaxed, to feel like natural, or how you call it, intuitive. Well, still there is always lines and clarity, but there's also a kind of casualness. And so I think the tree that comes there too, the poplar trees.
I've got a question. Oh,
Jamie, go ahead. Jamie, go ahead.
So thank you for doing this, Frank. I know nothing about this park, and now I'm curious. And so something that comes up for me is that I'm an older student, and I was so young when the wall was coming down that I imagine a lot of people who are seeing this, it's kind of secondhand, right? It's like historic. So I'm curious if you feel like for new generations, the park serves in a way as an adequate memorial to those of us who have no experience, or if you think it should be different.
I should have provided that information. Let me see if I can find it. There is actually 1.6 mile Berlin Wall Memorial. And the Berlin Mauerpark is just at the end of that. It has been like founded in 1997 to memorialize the death and the things that happen on the wall. So there are kind of contrary educational principles. The Mauerpark is like the vibrant space that is kind of all full of life, and the other one is a very detailed documentation of what happened on the wall. And 3 years ago, a remnant of the fortifications is actually found at the entrance and of the wall of the entrance at Eberswalder Straße. And so now we see a little overlap where we have a small spot where we have a storytelling about what the Berlin Wall was. And many tourists come to that place too. So yeah, I think it's my experience. It's has been a good coexistence, and the overlap only became, I think, because the Mauerpark has such a big standing too, so it doesn't interfere to kind of having this layer of history being present. And in fact, that 1 foot line you saw, that is one representation of where the Berlin Wall was 1989. So, I think the park has become more relaxed to add new layers and bring them in. Yeah, I can. I don't know. can bring something up here. I have so many images, it's really, and then you say, okay, I should have brought that image in too. Yeah, I don't think I will find it now. It's too I'm too slow. One second. Oh, yeah, here I have it. I think I have it, yeah. Okay, I will share. Second. So everybody can see this?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's the Berlin War Memorial. And the park is just here at the entrance.
We're actually seeing a screen with a bunch of your images, not the single image.
Yeah, we're seeing the folder, not the actual image. Yes, we see it now.
Okay. So and that has been like evolving since 1995, and there are other memorials too, like well, Checkpoint Charlie is one of it, but the East Side Gallery is one of it, and there's another location that commemorates the Berlin Wall. So there's a lot you can find in Berlin, and so there was discussion how much can the Mauerpark, you know, contain of that, right? Integrate, because there is already a lot of documentation there, and I think, you know, I think the times changed, so I got to be a little more relaxed, and because like this is a party karaoke Sunday place, so it's not really, you know, so it's just the contrary of a death strip. But I think 1 foot marking in the park and just a little build up, and I gotta see if I can show that too. 1 second to yeah. Share again. Oh, my sharing is very slow. Interesting. I don't see it. Sorry. I cannot. I don't see my document here anymore. Okay. Yeah, I've showed it in a presentation earlier, but sorry.
Do we have any other questions while Frank is looking for them?
Yeah, I had one question. I guess, you know, I see some potential for like conflicts with the park like this. You know, I mean, you were talking about the spirit of the park, and then how you're worried about maybe that's getting eroded. You know, so you got freedom, you got expression, you got a lot of different views. So is there somebody like attached to the park whose job is actually, I mean, in a sense, regulate the culture of the park, or is it more community? You know, like is it just done by the community, or it's just there isn't really a formal?
I mean, this is another park. It's gonna be a lot of conflicts all the time.
Right, right.
Like
So
about the noise, and so they invented a little shells that kind of cover it up, or someone really regulate concerts. So advocates are the Friends of the Mauerpark, who are always a little bit in the middle. But yeah, of course there are noise complaints, and it's also like the cities, like many cities, well, before COVID, of course, but have been major attractions. You know, there has been a lot of tourist draw to all the cities, and bigger cities in the world, well, Mauerpark is not an exception. The audience is very international. There are a lot of young tourist people, and you know, so of course it's a lively park, and there are conflicts all the time. I think the front of the Mauerpark, or the Friends of Mauerpark, are probably the strongest advocates that also have close relationship to the neighbors, while understanding the concept of the Mauerpark. But you get also independent people who don't get it or don't want it. Yeah.
Thank you.
So let's see. Oh, I'm gonna share the screen again. Okay. You see my screen?
Yeah, we see your PowerPoint.
Okay. So so this is a place where we see a memorial where a barrier has been found and becomes part of the park. And that's a close-up of that. So what we did here, we tried to integrate like two layers. The layer of trees that overlap this artifact from the Berlin Wall. So it's, even now it has been become more complex than the original design, which didn't have that element in. And I've been there when they found this. It's quite interesting. Yeah. See if I don't think I have more images of that.
The reason I was asking about that was that I'm curious about this, and I think that you have important experience around a park that's built in a place that could hold memorial, but maybe the memorial is like filling it with living people and celebration. But I think, you know, the US has to grapple with this, with all the walls that we're building in the future, and like how we want to memorialize those places or fill them with people or whatever. And I'm curious about your opinion about that in terms of Mauerpark.
But I think the monument they have, which is like a 1.6 mile or kilometer, I forget, I think it was not 1 mile. That is pretty successful, and it's also completely different how people behave there too. They're very, I mean, there's grass, you know, you don't see a party going on there. I think it's going to be interesting to see that at the entrance where things overlap, because this has been like a place where you also saw like the flea market expanding, you know, people are displaying their stuff on the stairs. I don't know if they would do that on the memorial. So I think it's definitely an interesting thing to look at. I mean, I've seen a photo without graffiti. There's already graffiti on the iron. So yeah, it's definitely, I think it's a place where these things kind of come together or overlap or conflict or however see it. I mean, I can show like previously, let's see, my sharing is really, I think I'm getting too slow here. Yeah, you see this image?
No, we see your folder.
Oh, God. Yeah. No? No.
Yes, we see people sitting, a lot of people sitting.
Yeah, right. So that's the reason actually why this entrance was rebuilt was because there was stormwater retention basin constructed in the entrance, and then they found the remnants. If you want to know about stormwater more in the park, actually the whole park contains there's a big storm retention system. But so this was to mediate like CSOs. So yeah, but this would be a normal scene there back in the day, and yeah. Oh yeah, and I have some other images. So see, that's where they just found that. They found also like this is a barrier here. Like remember there was one image where you see the vehicle barriers. So that was found during construction. What they also found is a tunnel, like that has been built to bring people from, this is east and this is west, from east to west. And in this case, with no success. So this entry for the tunnel has also been memorialized in the entry situation. And it was just when the park was, like when the storm retention basin was built. Yeah. Any more questions?
Frank, I think you've given us a lot to think about and a great talk. And I would encourage you to write the book. I know you're working on it, but sometimes books need a little push. So I'm giving you a little push.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you want? 1 year, 2 years? 5?
I'm actually writing like what I presented today, that design analysis. I want to do one article about that. I did one. There was looking at the intersection between the memorial and the entry. That has to be kind of, this would get a second edition.
Good. Excellent.
And just to get more knowledge about the park too, because I mean, I was a little bit naive, and first I wanted to write a book about Gustav Lange. And well, Mauerpark is already a pretty complex project, and so, but it's not easy. It's not always accessible to stuff that you want to show. But I think there's a lot. Like I think it's important to like we've seen work of landscape architects being demolished, and Gustav Lange including, like in Hamburg, you know, you've seen like things that have not been, and because nobody knows that are meaningful or even knows the design intention. And so if you write about things, if you talk about things, if you present it, then you get more response, and you get to the meaning of the things. And because I mean it's much easier to you know, just fill up the park with stuff or just do something new than to rebuild a building. So it's historic preservation is I think it's important. I mean, this park is already like the first part is a piece that has to be, I mean, not restored, I think in a conservative sense, but in a like intentional sense. So I think that's an interesting project too. It's not like it's going to be completely static, but I think the intention and has to be restored. The purpose, the meaning of the park as a place of freedom and openness, and also process-oriented change.
Very good.
Great. Thank you.
I think we're ready to close it up.
Yes. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Frank.
Thank you for joining. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your great questions.
Thank you, Frank.
Thank you, Rainer.
Thank you.
And I see you guys soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I'm gonna stay here with